Hey everybody, welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron. Today we're going to get back on project groundskeeper. If you watch the other videos, you know that I already got pretty much everything from the doors forward done. That got me off guard, something just fell over there. Got everything from pretty much the doors forward done, and got the front suspension lowered and everything. So today we're going to move on to the back. First thing I'm going to do is get all the wiring and everything unhooked, fuel tank unhooked, and then we're going to lift the bed off. And once we get the bed off, I'll pull the rear end out, and we'll start cleaning everything up, painting it, getting all the stuff ready for the axle flip, and then we'll go from there. So hang tight and let's get going. All right, well, we definitely got some work done this morning. My dad came over and gave me a hand for a little bit, and we got the bed off. So bed's off. I need to clean up some mouse house, and I'm gonna vacuum up as much of this dirt and crap as I can, get the rest of the old exhaust out, and then we'll start pulling. I'll get it up on jack stands and start pulling the rear end off of it. Take the leaf springs loose and all that, and get the rear end out, and then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it cleaned up, and then I'll bring you guys back and show you everything we do. Okay, I got the rest of the exhaust out, and I started vacuuming up stuff and realized that I was kind of wasting my time because I was gonna have to do it again after I get more stuff out of it, get everything stripped down and get it cleaned up. So we're gonna wait to do that. I pulled the rubber brake hose off that goes from the frame hard line to the rear end. We're replacing that like I always do. And now, before I unbolt this rear end and take it out of the truck, I'm gonna go ahead and take the cover off, drain all the fluid out of it, and then I'll clean it up really good and reseal it. That way, when I clean it up and paint it and all that, I don't have to worry about gear oil getting leaking on it or anything if I try to clean it up and do it then. So I definitely want to change the fluid in the rear end and get it all cleaned up. So we're just going to go ahead and do that now. And then, like I said, when I pull the rear end out, get it cleaned up and paint it, we don't have to worry about making a mess on the fresh paint later. So that's what we're doing. Well, we pulled that off. It didn't have very much fluid in it. And this is supposed to be a positive rear end. And it looks like it is. So, let that drain out a little bit. I'm going to get a light, look in there, check it out, and probably rinse everything down real good, clean everything up, clean the cover up. I don't know how good you guys can see this. I can't see the camera from where I'm at, but there's a magnet here, and it barely has anything on it. And this is all the original gasket and stuff, so this rear diff cover's never been off. Well, it may have. Somebody put some silicone on it, but what I can tell without a flashlight, there's not really any play in it. It doesn't look like there's a lot of wear, and I'm not seeing a lot of metal, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff cleaned up, and we'll put the cover back on. Alright, I got the rear end cover all cleaned up, resealed, put back on. Got the tires taken off, and I got the frame sitting on jack stands. So the only thing I got left to do to strip it down, as far as I'm going to strip it down, is pull off the shocks and drop the rear end out. So that's what we're going to do now. Rear end is out. Frame is stripped. I'm probably going to go ahead and drop the gas tank. I got to cut the bump stops off and cut the exhaust hanger brackets off because we're not going to be using those. And then we'll have to notch the frame. We'll do our flip kit on the rear end, clean everything up and paint it. Should be ready to go back together. So I did a lot of other stuff that I didn't film today, plus taking the bed off and stripping this rear end down. So my day's about over. I'm whooped, and I'm getting ready to go home. But tomorrow will probably be mostly a cleaning up and painting day. And then the next day, which will be Wednesday, we should be able to throw this back together and set it back on the ground. So that's my hope. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen. Depends on paint drying and stuff like that. But I think I can get this done completely in 2.5 days. So, I mean, without painting it, I've done it in a day, in a couple hours before. So pretty sure I can get it done this week. That's the plan. And before long, it's all going to be cleaned up, painted, dropped, and set back on the ground. So hang tight. As soon as I come back, we'll be cleaning up. I got to clean up this mess in the shop, and then we'll start cleaning stuff up and painting it. Well, it's the next day, early in the morning, and I'm ready to go. So I got my mess halfway cleaned up, not perfect, but I'm about to make another one, so it doesn't really matter. First thing I'm going to do today is start taking rear end apart as far as it's going to go, and by that we're just going to take the leaf springs and the U-bolts and the plates off. I'm going to take the drums off, check the rear brakes, and clean everything up. So I'm going to do that, and also going to clean the frame up today, and I don't know if I'll be able to paint the frame yet because I still have to notch it, but I can at least get the bump stops and the exhaust hanger brackets and everything else that we're not going to need off of it, and start looking at notching it, because I don't want to paint it till after I notch it, because I want to paint it all together. So we're going to start taking these U-bolts off, get these springs off this rear end. We'll get the rear end set up on some jack stands and clean it up. Alright, a little bit of advice for those of you that don't know or haven't done this before. These U-bolts, the threads kind of rust a little bit and they get a lot of dirt and stuff packed in them. And if you just take and stick a socket and an impact on here, they're really hard to get off, and sometimes they won't come off, sometimes they'll strip the threads out. It's really bad. So what I always do is I just go ahead, use any kind of penetrating oil, it don't matter what it is, but WD-40, PB Blaster, Croil, whatever you want to use, and I soak them down good. And then I'll let them just sit there for a minute. Kind of soak that in a little bit. And I'm just going to take a stiff bristle wire brush and just really get the threads cleaned out good. This still doesn't make them just buzz right off easy usually, but it really helps a lot in the process. So, and you really want to make sure you get in that little corner where the nut and the bolt meets, because that's your initial start. That's where it's going to start coming off, so you want to make sure that's nice and clean. These really aren't that bad compared to some that I've done, but I do this every time. Alright, and after I get them all brushed down, kind of rinse them off and lube them up again with the penetrating oil. And then hopefully they'll come right off. Alright, you guys saw what I did there. Just run it out, and if it stops turning, flip it, run it back down, clean it, lube it some more, run it out. If it stops turning, run it back down, clean it up, lube it some more, and just keep going. And now I got that off, and my nut is fine, and all my threads look perfect. And usually you don't reuse these, but sometimes you have to. You don't have an option. So that's the best way to do it. Just make sure you get them as clean as you can and lube them up as good as you can, and just work them back and forth and get them off. And then once you get the U-bolt completely out, if you're going to reuse it, you can take it over on like a wire brush on a bench grinder or something and just clean it all really good. And my opinion, that's the best way to do it. I don't like taking a torch and cutting them, or taking a cut-off wheel and cutting them. You can, it's quick and easy, but I prefer to do it this way. So I got 7 more to do. It's kind of time consuming, so I'll catch up with you guys when I get done. Alright, I got all the U-bolts loose. Got the leaf springs off. Pulled the drums to check the brakes, and these brakes just all fell apart when I got them off. And I came over to this side and got a little bit of a surprise. I took the drum off and there's nothing there. We got a wheel cylinder, that's it. So luckily I know a guy that's got a bunch of parts laying around. I can probably come up with an adjuster, and I'm gonna need a parking brake bracket, and I don't know what the piece is called that separates the pads at the top, but I might be able to come up with one of them too. So I'm gonna run to the parts store and get them started looking for these brakes, because I guarantee they don't have them. They're gonna have to be ordered, and the quicker I can get them back, the better. I can put the rear end and everything back in the truck and then do the brakes, but I just want to make sure that I have the parts coming so I can keep moving. So I'm gonna go and run and see what they can come up with. All right, I went and got all my brakes ordered up. They should hopefully be here tomorrow. Hopefully, so that should keep us on schedule. I got to clean the rear end up and paint it like I said, but I think the next thing I'm gonna do is remove all these brackets and stuff off of the frame and get it ready to cut a notch in it. So I'm gonna set the camera up. I'll show you guys how I get rid of the rivets. We've done it before, but we'll do it again. So we'll pop those rivets off and get all those brackets off. And once I get the brackets and everything off, then I can draw out where my notch is going to be and get the frame cut. And then I just got to get some steel and make my notches, but that's no big deal. And then we can get the notches put in, and then I can paint the frame and then clean up the rear end and paint it too. So I'm gonna set up and get all those brackets off. Okay, before I pull my bump stops off, I'm gonna go ahead and mark for my notch. And I'm gonna run my notch right from the front of where the bump stop is to the back of where the bump stop bracket is. It doesn't necessarily need to be that big, but that will that'll make sure we're not hitting anywhere. So we'll do that, and then come up about 2.5 inches. And then I'll get something flat and mark that line across there. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we're not going to take it, it's not going to be straight. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put a little bit of an angle on it. I don't want to do like a full 45. Maybe I will, I'm not sure. But at least now I know where it needs to be. So I can go ahead and pull this bump stop off. And I'll mark it the same way on the other side and pull that bump stop off, and then I can go ahead and finish mapping this out and getting it ready to cut after I get the bump stops off. So I'm gonna mark the other side out, and then we'll come and start taking brackets and stuff off. We're gonna go ahead and cut our cross hatches in our rivets here. Alright, so that's the easiest way that I found to get these rivets off. You just cut across in them, plus sign, whatever you want to call it, but cut a T and then hit them with the air chisel and they pop right off. So I'm going to do the same process over here on the bump stops on both sides. We'll get those off and then we'll start laying out our frame and getting ready to chop it up. Got all my bump stop brackets off. Now I'm going to measure up from the bottom 2.5 inches. Then I'm going to take my straight edge, put it on there. And we'll mark that out. And then I'm going to come in just a little bit, maybe like Actually, I think I'm just going to leave them squared off. So we'll go ahead and cut that out on both sides, and then we'll start making our notches. First thing I'm going to do to cut it out, I'm going to go get a drill bit, and I'm going to drill these corners, and then I'll cut from the circled mark there. The reason I'm doing that is because that leaves a nice smooth spot on the frame, and it's not a sharp cut. A sharp cut's going to have a bigger chance of cracking or splitting out, where if you drill a hole in it and it's got a nice radius, it should make it a little bit stronger. We're going to plate it anyways, but that helps. So I'm going to go get a drill, and I'll drill out these two corners here, and then we'll cut the rest of it out. I got a 1/2 inch drill bit here. I'm going to kind of eyeball where my corner needs to be. And we'll go ahead and drill it through. Alright, we got our holes drilled. They're not perfect, but it's still going to give us our radius that we want, and it's all going to be covered up. So I'll go ahead and get a cutoff wheel and cut that out. Alright, got that side all cut out. We'll clean it up a little bit, but it's exactly what we wanted. So now I just got to go over and do the same thing on the other side, and we'll go from there. Okay, I don't know if it's me getting older or if I just set unreachable goals for myself or what it is, but my goal for yesterday was to notch the frame, get the notch built, get everything welded in, get the frame and the rear end cleaned up and painted, and everything ready to go so I could come back and put it back together today. and I did have to run into town, which is 30 miles twice. It's 30 miles each way. I had to run into town twice, and I had to go get some stuff I needed and stuff like that, but I didn't get all that done yesterday. So my goal is to get it done today so the paint can dry overnight so I can start putting stuff back together tomorrow. So I'm hoping for that. I got my notches cut out both sides. You can see that one over there is cut, this one's cut, and then I got some 1/4 inch plate. I cut it the width of the widest part of the frame right here, and then I bent it. You can see this one's already up in there. It's fairly tight, holds itself in there at least. So this will go up in my notch and get welded all the way around. And then I made plates for the inside of the frame, and that's going to sit down over my notch and get welded up, and then it'll get welded all the way across the top and the bottom of the frame. So that's going to be my notch. It's going to be plenty strong, probably stronger than the notches that you can buy, if not as strong as the notches you can buy. And so we're going to get going on that. I got a lot of grinding I got to do to clean these notches up where I cut them. I got to clean up the frame where I'm going to be welding and get this welded in. So I'm going to start grinding, get everything cleaned up, and then we're going to start doing some welding on this thing. Alright, I got my pieces all fitted up here. I got my inner plate for the frame set in here. I'm going to go ahead and tack it in place. And then once I get it tacked in place, I'll bring my notch in and tack it into place. And then if everything seems to fit good and looks alright, then I'll go ahead and weld everything up. Okay, as you saw in the time lapse, I got my notches welded in. Well, you saw one of them. And I went ahead and welded the other one in also, so the notching on the frame is done. I just got to go back with a grinder and clean the welds up a little bit because, you know, everybody's a good welder if you got a grinder, right? So, here we go. Got my notches in, they look clean. Most of the welds don't look too bad. I mean, not bad for a worn out old welder. I left these hanging down a little bit. Just make sure everything fit good and it wasn't too short, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim a little bit of this back off. And then I got my plate on the inside. It all turned out good. Got it welded top, bottom. I welded across the bottom of the frame and welded this in to the frame and tied it all in with this, you know what I mean. Welds on this one aren't quite as good, but they still don't look bad. This side's all welded up, so notches are done. I just got, like I said, just clean up a little bit. So next thing I'm gonna do is clean up the welds a little bit on the notches, but I don't need to show you guys all that. It's just more boring stuff. So clean those up, Scotch-Brite the whole frame, clean up any real bad spots on it, wipe it down real good, and then we can slap a coat of paint on the frame. And then I just got to clean up the rear end and the leaf springs and get them painted as well. And I'm hoping to get all that done today because tomorrow I want to put this all back together. And I want to put all that in this video. So once again, I don't like rushing anything. I like to do it right. So if I get it done, I get it done. If I don't, I don't. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and bust the grinder out, clean the welds up a little bit, and then we'll clean up the frame and get some paint on it. All right, I got all my welds ground down good enough. Rather than cutting these ears that are sticking down off like I said I was going to, I decided to leave them. They're not hurting nothing, and I got weld about halfway down them, so they'd be sticking down a little bit anyways because I don't want to cut through my weld. So I just rounded the corners off of them and ground the bottoms, make them nice and smooth and flat, and rounded the corners so there wasn't any sharp edges. And I'm just going to leave them. They don't look that bad, not hurting anything being there. So next thing I'm going to do is take purple Scotch-Brite here and rub down this whole frame from the cab back, and then we'll shoot some paint on it. frame modifications that we're doing are done. Got a nice coat of gloss black paint on everything. Inside and out. Everything's looking pretty good. So that's probably going to take overnight to dry, especially with the humidity. So I'm going to go ahead and get this rear end and the leaf springs cleaned up and painted. And then I'll let them sit overnight to dry too. And then tomorrow I'll come back and we'll hang the rear end and get this thing back on its wheels. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the rear end and the leaf springs, get them painted. I'll bring you guys back when we start putting her back together. All right, it's a new day and it's going to be a good one. Got me some new tires. And we're going to be putting the rear end of groundskeeper back together, which means all new axle flip kit, new shocks, drop shackles. I'll show you guys all that in a minute, but before I get too far into anything, I want to thank a couple people. A good friend of mine, Big Rob. I've known him for a long time. He came down from out of state to visit for a little bit, and he's an automotive painter, one of the best I've ever seen. And he watches my videos, and he got tired of seeing me spray paint and everything, and knows that I know how to paint. So he brought me down this really nice Anesta Wada spray gun. So if you guys have been following along, you know we have to paint groundskeeper, so I'll be trying that out real soon. And I also want to thank John from C10 Disorder. Sent me over this really cool shirt. It's got the same logo, bigger on the back. I can't bend my arm that way to show you. And he also sent me this C10 Disorder keychain. If you guys are into square bodies, C10s in general, and don't know about C10 Disorder, check it out. They've got a page on Facebook at C10 Disorder Official. I'll put a little bar down there at the bottom of the screen in case you don't understand exactly what I'm saying or something, so you'll know. But it's one of the best C10 groups out there. Very family oriented, no BS. I mean, it's not one of those pages where you go and ask a question and everybody bashes you, because I guarantee you if somebody bashes you, they're not part of the family anymore. So I've been part of the page for a long time, real good people. So if you're into C10s and you're not on C10 Disorder, go check it out. All right, now we got that stuff done. Gonna move on to finishing up groundskeeper here. And we got brand new McGahee's, I think that's how you say it. Lowering shocks. Got our rear end all painted up. We've got drop shackles. We've got axle flip kit, and everything's clean, painted, and ready to go. So we can start throwing all this together. Now, I bought a flip kit for this one, but I still have to flip the axle on the back of Rum Runner. And I'm gonna make a video on that too, because instead of using a flip kit like I did on that one, not really sure where they are, but I bought new leaf spring pads, and I'm actually going to clean this axle up and weld new pads onto it for the springs, and I'll make a video on that, and I'll show you guys how you check your pinion angles and all that and get them welded in and all that kind of stuff. So I showed you the DIY C-notches on this video. I'm going to have to do that to Rum Runner also, but on Rum Runner I'm going to do the axle flip a different way, so I'll make another video to show you how to do that. That axle flip kit, I want to say, was right around 60 bucks. It came with the flip brackets, the U-bolts, and the U-bolt plates. The spring pads that I got for Rum Runner was about 20 bucks for some good ones. I think they're Moroso brand or something, but they're real nice spring pads. So I mean, if you do it this way, it's costing you about 60 bucks to flip the axle. If you do it the way I'm going to do it on Rum Runner, it costs you about 20 bucks. But there's a lot more labor involved. So I'm gonna get set up. I'm gonna get all my stuff over there, and we're gonna get going on putting the back end of this truck back together. All right, you can do this by yourself, but it's a lot easier if you have somebody to help you. And luckily my dad happens to be in town right now, so he's gonna give me a hand. We're gonna roll the rear end back underneath the truck and get the leaf spring set up there, and then once we get it kind of sitting there by itself, then I'll be able to go ahead and button everything down. So we're gonna put the rear end on a jack, and I'm gonna kind of balance it, and he's gonna slide it in, and we'll get it in place. We'll get our leaf springs set where they need to go and hung, and then we'll go from there. Okay, these are our drop or our flip brackets. They come with 2 holes in the bottom. You want to put this hole toward the front, and that's the hole that you want to put on your spring. That makes it so that when your rear end travels, it doesn't bottom out the drive shaft in the back of the transmission. Grab one of those bolts and 2 washers. Put 1 washer on, and then come up here. Okay. Jack the jack up a little bit more. Alright, and then grab our drop bracket this way. The U-bolts are going to go down from the top. Now we're going to grab a plate. Same thing on this. It's got 2 holes. You want to put it in there, put the spring in the front hole. see over there.
You gotta go, you gotta hit it this way. There.
Okay, I'm going to go and do the same thing on the other side. And I'll bring you guys in a little bit closer when I tighten everything up and try to explain it a little bit better. Okay, I got the rear end in there. Leaf springs are in with the drop shackles. And I snugged up my U-bolts here. I snugged up my U-bolts just to make sure that everything lined up. Now I have to just get everything, make sure everything's situated where it needs to be, and then I can go ahead and tighten all that down. And I've talked about this in other videos before, but I'm going to go over it again really fast, just in case you haven't seen it and need to know. These nuts here, here, and on the front, they have lock nuts on them. They're supposed to have lock nuts on them. When you go to tighten these down, you don't want to like take an impact and just hammer it till it's tight, because if you tighten this bolt down tight where it's at right now, like where the droop and the spring and everything is, when you set the weight down on the truck and this is tight, it can't move. And same with this one. If this is tight, this bushing can't move. These need to move for your travel or your suspension, because when I put weight on this shackle is going to come back, and if you hit a bump, it'll go forward and back. If the frame of the truck goes up, the shackle is going to go forward. If the frame of the truck goes down, the shackle is going to move back. So you want these snug. Obviously you don't want to just leave them hand tight. You want them snug, but you don't want to crank down on them and pinch this in there, because that'll ruin your travel. You need your travel. So I'm going to go ahead and get my U-bolt straightened up and torque these down. The torque spec on these is as tight as you can get them without breaking them. And general rule of thumb, like once the truck's all together, you drive it around, they say about 100 miles, and then you go back and retorque those, just to be sure. So I'm going to go ahead and button it up. Rear end's in, drop kit's in. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. So I'll get everything snugged up, tightened up, all that stuff, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, I got everything bolted in, snugged down, tightened up, all that good stuff. And next thing I'm going to do is put the rear shocks on. Just hang them from the top, and then from the looks of it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I might have to relieve this plate a little bit to get the shock to bolt up. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to, just the slightest little bit. So, but that's the gist of it. Put the top on, put our nut on there, and then run our bolt through, tighten up the bottom. I'm going to get a grinder out and relieve the edge of that plate just a little bit so I can get the nut in there, and then we'll have the shocks on. Not really sure what was going on with that bottom shock bolt. I ended up fighting with it for at least an hour, but we got it done. I don't give up and got it taken care of. Got the other shock on. I'm not doing the brakes right now. I'm gonna save that for another video. I'm gonna do the brakes and the drive shaft and all that stuff in another video. This video, I just wanted to get the notch done and get the rear end lowered. So we got that taken care of. Put the drums on it, just slid the drums on just for spacers, and threw the wheels and tires back on so I could get it off the jack stand to see what it looked like. And I'm telling you what, I am super happy with the way this thing came out. I think it looks amazing. You guys should really see it. Oh wait, I gotta show you. Duh. Here it is. Sitting down. Got my shocks put in. This shock here, the bolt clears. I don't know how well you guys can see it. The bolt clears, but the nut wouldn't clear the side of this bracket. So I shaved a nut down and that didn't really work. So I went back and took my flapper wheel and just shaved that side of that plate just a little bit to make it fit. But my notches line up perfect. The rear end comes down, it's gonna sit right in them like it's supposed to. This shock's on, everything's bolted up, everything's tightened down. And it actually ended up coming out perfect. I measured from the floor up to the bottom of the rocker, and right now, without a front clip, without a bed, without all the other stuff that goes on the motor, no seat, I mean, we've got a few 100 pounds that have to go back on. And right now it's sitting at about 10 inches to the bottom of the rocker, which is pretty much perfect. That's about where I wanted it. It might come down to about 9 when we get all the weight back on it, which is still fine. I just don't want you to have to, you know, drive sideways to try to pull into a parking lot or not be able to go over a speed bump or anything like that. I don't like them that low. I like them to have a nice hot rod looking stance, and that's what I think this is. So it came out really great, super happy with it, and progress is moving on. I mean, this thing's come a long way in a short time, and it's gonna come a lot longer way in a short time, because we're buttoned down, we're knocking it out, and it's gonna be cool. Next video, I will do the drive shaft, the rear brakes, button a few more things up. I got to pull the windshield, I got to pull the back window, I got to pull the doors off, and then I got to start body working this roof. I don't know how well you can see with the dust on it, but it's got a few dents here, it's got a few dents here, it's got a big dent over there on the other side, and then there's a little ding in the door, this door. There's a couple dings in the bed, but overall the body's pretty straight and rust free. So I shouldn't have to do a ton of body work to it, but I'll probably make a video just on the body work, and that'll take me about a week to do, hopefully not more. And then we'll get it over. I got a buddy's letting me use his paint shop to paint it. So we're gonna put it on a trailer, take it over there, and get it painted up. Make a video on that too. And then the final assembly can start. So we got a ways to go, but not as far as we had when we started. I think it's looking great. So hopefully you guys like it. That's gonna do it for this video. That's what I wanted to get done. So if you're subscribed, thank you very much. It means a lot to me, and hopefully you're enjoying the content. If you're not subscribed, please do. You're not gonna wanna miss how this truck turns out. And for people that are new or haven't heard yet, this truck is gonna be debuted at Truckin' the Trace in Tupelo, Mississippi on October 15th. I'm gonna be there, the truck's gonna be there. I'm hoping maybe I can get some other trucks that have been on the channel there also, if the owners of them will feel like bringing them. If I get groundskeeper done early enough, I want to try to get Rum Runner here at least cleaned up enough that it's worthwhile to put on the trailer and bring up there, so you guys can check that out. I could bring it like it is right now, but I'd like to get some more stuff done. I at least want to get the back end lowered down so it has the right stance that it's gonna have, and heck, I'd like to have it running and driving, but we'll see. But yeah, truck in the trace, October 15th, Tupelo, Mississippi. Groundskeeper will be there. Rum runner may be there. Dirty, it sounds like it's gonna be there. If the parts come in and I get hot shot done, it may be there. If I take rum runner, my dually Pennywise will be there. So there may be quite a few vehicles off the channel. I'm gonna try to set up a tent, have some stickers, stuff like that, do a little meet and greet if anybody's interested. But leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Tell me you like the truck lowered, tell me you think I ruined the truck because I lowered it. Whatever your opinion is, that's your opinion, I wanna know. Hit the like button, share this video with everybody you know, and try to get my numbers up for me. I appreciate y'all watching. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next time.